traditional 5 elements earth. This one has a pattern very similar to fire. So if you get pretty good at fire, you understand traditional 5 elements fire. This one's really similar to that. Even has pretty much the same setup in beginning. The technique's a little bit different. This technique definitely can be done by itself, or it can be done within the form. It can be done in combination. It's a lot like wood in that it can also be used really well with weapons, especially knife, sword, and spear work insanely well. Staff works really well too. But you really have to have the arm strength to pull that off on the bigger weapons. But it does work really well. But if you are planning to do this move with a weapon in something like SCA or armored combat, it really does take a certain setup. You can't normally do it that well, but there are some exceptions. You can't normally do it that well in singles combat. You can do it in line combat like a dream though, and you have to be a little bit deceptive with it, in my opinion. Alright, so what we're going to do, just like we did all the rest of them, I'm going north, but my body is aligned northwest. Do my traditional, and move back a little bit, bow salute, here. Now just like fire, come up, over, here. Now the difference is, I'm stepping just like fire. So now this hand comes into block. Lots of ways that we can do this, we'll talk about that. This hand comes underneath in here. Think of it like you have you're holding a bowl of soup. Or an empty cup. You're scooping up water and presenting that water, okay? So it's here. It even is very similar to the way we do what we call crane block, okay? You could think of this as an open hand block here. The technique goes out. You could think of that just like crane block, that grab. You could think of that as deflection and then stagger the strike. You could do it as a hammer fist. You could do it just as what we call crane block, okay? You could, even especially in the case of weapons, if you're using this technique for a weapon, just keep this hand in here to guard the whole time. Knife, spear, sword. It's very similar to what in a lot of fighting circles they call a molinet. So if anyone ever says, oh, you're doing a molinet, just go, yeah, cool, molinet, because you're basically doing that. All right, so that's the technique. There's no crazy turn or anything like this. It's just like fire. We're focusing mostly on that one technique. Step up, over, down, step. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, I'm going to come out like I'm going to do it again, except now, instead of going forward, like I would if I was doing a 5 count, I'm going to turn around. 1, 2, 3, 4. Same thing. I'll come up like I'm going to do a 5 count, go one more segment. Instead, I'm going to turn, go here. I do it once, salute and bow. Now, if you think of this without weapons, the application would be really simple. Someone's punching at you, and it's almost like in boxing how they do like a slip. So it's almost like that. You're slipping here, the punch comes forward, slips here, and strike. If you're going for the ribs, you may want to do a forearm strike or a hammer fist. If you are going high, you can do it that way with the palm over, or you can do it with a hammer fist, either one. Okay, so both would work. So again, here, so bow, salute, open up. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Come up, turn. 1, 2, 3, 4. Come up, turn. Here. There. Now, if I'm doing it forward, you can see a little bit how we play off the angles. And you have to think about this with your imaginary opponent in your head, with what side they are. When I was young, and really when I first got into martial arts, I was probably 8 or so years old. I read a story that in some of the old Japanese schools of martial arts, one of the first things you would do is create this imaginary opponent in your head. And as you grew and got better in your training, the imaginary opponent would get better in their training. And so you're always meant to be training so that you could someday defeat that mental imaginary opponent. I think that's a cool idea. So so we've got our imaginary opponent here in front of us, so we have to work off the angle of their attack. So they have a boxing stance. I come up, bring down the boxing stance, right? Maybe they punch. So I step, slip, push it to the side, get underneath the attack, strike. In a self-defense situation, we could just run from there. So again, block it down, step, again, block it down, there. Block it down. Now we'll go back. 1, 2, 3, 4. And again. Bounce it. Like any move, your core work, your hips, is very important. But I think especially on this, especially if you really want range, if you're thinking of it in a weapon type situation. So don't just do it with the arm. Bring the hips in motion with it. Bring the back foot in motion with it. And you can really get range if that's what you need. If you're doing it hand to hand and you're kind of close in, really close quarters, then you don't have to do it for range, but you still want to do it for power. So my arm can come up, and then when my hips come back out, it's that whipping motion that brings the power up, the whipping motion, that power, the kinetic energy, to be scientific, goes through the arm. Pull it out, okay? So that is traditional 5 elements